Hey guys, welcome back. If you've been following our last few videos, then you are fresh off of our series on building good credit. And today we're going to start another series on something that's becoming a bit of a crisis in our community, federal student loan debt. Let's get started. So as I said, federal student loans are becoming a real crisis in our community. There are people out there who owe not tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of dollars and are really struggling with finding a way on how to pay that back. So we're going to do a multi-part series covering some of those strategies. We'll talk about pros and cons, and there's going to be a lot of information coming. So in part one, we're going to cover, and I got my cheat sheet with me because we're covering a lot of material today. In part one, we'll cover some of the income-based payment plans that I hear about most regularly. In part two, we'll cover how income-based payment plans are calculated. So if you're on a plan based on a percentage of your income, how do they determine what that payment will be? In part three, we'll cover forbearance, deferment, and loan forgiveness, including the public service loan forgiveness program for those of you who are interested. In part four, we'll do student loans for married couples, and we're going to finish up in part five with private loans. Now, all of the information we're going to cover today and throughout this series is available to you at www.studentaid.gov. So if I say something and you hear a topic or a subject matter that you want to go into a little further, I'd invite you to go there because that is a wealth of resources and information that's available to you. But today, let's start with those income-based repayment plans. Federal student loans offer a number of different options for repayment. The most conventional option would be a traditional standard loan. Now, a standard loan repayment period is typically 10 years all the way up to 30 years if you have a consolidation loan, and we'll cover consolidation loans in another video. Direct loans, Stafford loans, plus loans, and consolidation loans all qualify for standard repayment. The benefits of paying back a loan using a standard loan is everyone is eligible and your payments don't change over time. They're fixed. But a standard loan's monthly payment is based on how much is actually needed to pay off your debt within that period. Meaning if you have a 10-year repayment plan and owe $50,000, whatever payment you have is designed to completely pay off that $50,000 within 10 years. So if you owe a relatively small amount or you make a big income, this may not be a big deal at all. But believe it or not, I work with clients who owe as much as $400,000 in student loans. Imagine what their payments would be if they actually had to pay off their loans in that 10-year period. It would be astronomical. So what do you do if you either owe too much to pay that back in full or you make too little to make the payments on a standard loan repayment? I'm glad you asked. Now, in 2012, a debt relief law was passed, and that introduced a number of repayment plans that aren't based on how much you owe, they're based on how much you make. There are 5 repayment plans based on your household income: pay as you earn, revised pay as you earn, income-based repayment plan, income contingent repayment plan, and income sensitive repayment plan. Each of these plans are different, and we will cover some of the differences in this series, but depending on the option you choose, income plans basically ask you to pay 10 to 20% of your, hear this, discretionary income each year. Now that percentage scares a lot of people off. They hear 10%, 15, 20% of their income and they're afraid. But I would encourage you to not really be worried about that until part 2 when we cover how discretionary income is calculated. And if you're looking for why this would be a fit for you, if you are one of those clients or people that I talked about who have astronomical loan balances and don't make enough money to pay it off in a reasonable time, paying based off a percentage of your discretionary income as opposed to a standard loan repayment may be a good fit for you. So let's cover 3 of the ones that I hear most regularly are a fit for some of the people that we work with on a daily basis: pay as you earn, revised pay as you earn, and income-based repayment. Let's start with income-based repayment plan, or IBR. Direct loans, Stafford loans, plus loans made to students, and consolidation loans are all eligible for the IBR. The stipulations of this plan are based off of the date you took out your first federal loan, and that date determines whether you're considered a new borrower or an old borrower. New borrowers took out their first federal loan on or after July 1st, 2014. So if you took out your first loan before then, you are an old borrower, and those 2 categories decide a lot about how this plan works. For old borrowers, payments are typically 15% of your discretionary income. I keep saying that because that is something you really want to key in on as we go throughout this series. But if you're a new borrower, payments are typically 10% of your discretionary income as opposed to 15%. If you're an old borrower, any remaining loan balances are forgiven after you've made 25 years of payments, and we'll also cover how that forgiveness works later in this series. But if you're a new borrower, remaining balances are forgiven after 20 years of payments. Now, to qualify for IBR, your income repayment can't be more than it would be under a 10-year standard loan. And the same is true for the plan we'll cover next, the pay-as-you-earn. So that lets you know that these plans are typically the best fit for people who have some pretty high loan balances. Because if they didn't, they'd probably be better off just trying to actually pay the loan back within the 10-year period of time, as opposed to taking a track where some of those loans will likely be forgiven. Next is the pay-as-you-earn plan, or the PAYE plan. Direct loans, direct plus loans made to students, and direct consolidation loans are all eligible here. So basically all direct loans. To qualify for the pay-as-you-earn plan, not only can your payment not be higher than 10-year standard plans, but you also have to be considered a new borrower here as well, which for the purposes of this plan means your first loan came on or after October 1st, 2007. If you're in that camp, payments for the pay-as-you-earn plan are 10% of your discretionary income, and any remaining balances are forgiven after 20 years of payments. So this plan is a little more forgiving than the IBR because the payments can be lower, and if you qualify, your loans are forgiven after 20 years, as opposed to some people in the IBR plan who have to pay for 25 years. Lastly, we have the revised pay-as-you-earn, or Repay, which I would say is a program that blends elements of the first two that we covered. I see this option a lot with married couples who both have pretty high federal student loan debts. And I'll say again, if you stick with us throughout the entire series, I'll explain why that is in part 4 when we cover student loans for married couples. But direct Stafford loans, direct plus loans made to students, and direct consolidation loans are all eligible here. Again, this is another payment program where you need to have direct loans. Payments under the Repay plan are 10% of your discretionary income, and the amount of time you have to pay on these loans depends on when you took them out. See, under the Repay plan, any remaining loans you took out for undergrad are forgiven after 20 years, but any leftover for graduate school loans have to be paid for 25 years before they're forgiven. That is definitely enough for one day. So we went through a lot of details in this video, but it's important because I wanted you to understand the foundation of what makes these plans work. Because in part 2, we're going to start with covering what discretionary income means and how it's used to calculate what that payment would actually be. Again, if you were really turned off or afraid of what I said when I'm throwing out 10% and 15%, please tune in for part 2 because we're going to show you that it may not be as high of a payment as you're expecting when I say those percentages. And hopefully as we build throughout this series, we'll give you a plan of action for how you can address your loans moving forward if you're the type of person who finds yourself in the scenarios that we're discussing. As always, if you liked what you heard, please share it with your friends. And if you want to submit a topic to be covered in the future, you can do that by going to my website, www.brentonharrison.com, and under the blog section, there is a questionnaire that you can fill out for topics you want to be considered in the future. See you guys in part 2.